Hi, my name is Yen, and this is a review of my iPad mini 6 along with the second generation Apple Pencil after using it for 5 months. I purchased my iPad mini 6 for $499 and the Pencil for $125 before tax. The final total for the case, the pen, the screen protector, and the iPad itself was around $700, including tax. As a student, I take lots of notes, so this iPad is almost always used with the Pencil. I'm not sponsored by anyone or anything, but my app of choice is GoodNotes 5. Mainly because it is the cheaper version. I will say I like my handwriting a little bit more in Notability, but it's not enough to pay the subscription for it. I don't usually play a lot of games on my iPad, but I'm sure it's plenty fast and it'll be great for that. Same thing goes for movies. I don't often watch movies on my iPad, but I'm sure it's fine. Opening up the box, you'll find the iPad itself, a USB-C cable with USB-C on both ends, as well as a 20-watt USB-C wall plug thing. I personally didn't need another one, but it's nice that it's included. In terms of specs, my iPad mini 6 has the newest A15 Bionic chip, along with 64GB of storage, around 55 of which is usable. Of course, there's options for 256GB of storage for $150 more, as well as 5G and GPS, also $150 more. I didn't really need either of those, so I just went with the $499 version. There are 4 colors: Space Gray, Pink, Purple, and Starlight, minus Starlight, as it was the only one in stock at the time. And it's a pale yellow, almost whitish under the right lighting. And here's my dad's purple one. Honestly, they're all fine. It doesn't really matter which color you get. While we're on the subject of outside, the iPad mini 6 is 5.5 inches wide, around 14 centimeters, and just short of 8 inches long, around 20 centimeters. It's around 3/8 of an inch thick, or just slightly less than a centimeter, and weighs in at 304 grams. With the case, it's about 435. Side note, the weight on the Apple website is very accurate. The bottom finally features a USB-C as opposed to a Lightning port, which is really nice to see. The iPad mini 6 is really small and fits on basically every desk I've encountered at my university. Alternatively, you could just hold it in your hand as it is light enough and just take notes that way, especially when there's no desk. On the top, where the front-facing camera is, you'll find the power button as well as the volume rockers. They feel fine as expected, and even after 5 months, they feel the same as the day I got them, which is a good sign. A fun little detail is that they'll follow the orientation of the iPad. Left and down is always volume down, up and right is always volume up. The fingerprint sensor is honestly a little slower than I'd like. It takes a second or two to unlock, especially from the lock screen. It requires you to rest your finger on the sensor than just touching it, which isn't the biggest deal, but it would be nice if it was just a little bit faster. The iPad mini 6 display is 2266 by 1488 pixels and measures in at 8.3 inches or around 21 centimeters diagonally. It's only 60 Hz, so no high refresh rate, but it's fine for the $500 you pay for it. Resolution's not glorious, but it's good enough. I can't see individual pixels unless I put my nose on the screen, which is not something I usually do. It gets bright enough, especially indoors, but it's not quite bright enough for outdoor use, and it may be a little difficult to see in direct sunlight. The display is IPS, so you won't get those deep blacks and epic contrast of an OLED display, but Apple usually does a good job with their IPS display, and it's the same for this iPad. And of course, there's the jelly scroll issue, which honestly I didn't really notice at first, but after a while it becomes quite apparent. Especially if I put it in slow motion, you can really easily see that this display is a little weird. And it's especially noticeable when you're just flipping pages in a notebook or scrolling text. I can't seem to notice it watching videos and movies, which is probably why I didn't figure it out until about a month later after owning it. It's most easy to see when you have the pen side down and you're scrolling horizontally, something about the video controller orientation. It's not a deal breaker for me, but it's honestly something to keep in mind if you're really sensitive. Putting a matte screen protector does diminish the display quality quite a bit, especially the clarity, but I choose to keep mine on because I like the pen feeling more than I care about the drop in image quality. Speaking of the pen, the pencil itself is around 18 grams. For comparison, this normal pencil is around 5 grams. I actually quite like the feel of it in the hand, though it is a little slippery and I have dropped it many times from desk height or around 3 feet, 1 meter, and it still works, which is nice. Though I am concerned about the durability, as it is just made of entirely plastic, so I would definitely avoid sitting on it. The tips of the pencil are replaceable, though they're a little expensive at about $5 per tip, even though I do use a matte screen protector and that will wear out my pen tip more quickly. After 5 months of using it almost every day, I haven't had the need to replace mine yet, though it's starting to not feel the same as when it was brand new. And I'm sure it would last even longer if you just write on the normal glass screen of the iPad. The battery life on it is quite good for me actually, and the pen charges by magneting onto the side of this, which is also the convenient and easy way to pair it with your iPad as well. I've gone an hour and a half in a full lecture without attaching the pen to the side, and the lowest I've ever seen the battery is about 85%. I don't know how truthful that charging indicator is, but I've never had the pen stop working because it ran out of battery while I was writing. If you shut down the iPad though, the pen will discharge overnight, which is something I found out going to class the next day. However, it will charge incredibly quickly, and with around 10 minutes of charging, I was able to finish the class without any issue. The magnet is strong enough in day-to-day use and should keep the pen attached, but it is just a magnet, so it will fall off if you just shove your iPad in your backpack like I do. But most importantly is how it feels to write, and I gotta say, it's pretty good. It feels pretty natural and pretty accurate to write with. There's pressure sensors so you can do fun things like holding it down harder to draw thicker lines. And while the matte screen protector isn't exactly like writing on paper, at least it provides some resistance, unlike just writing on pure glass. There's also the handwriting to text conversion feature. Basically, anywhere you can type, you can just write. It works terribly for me. I don't think it's actually gotten a single word correctly for me, and just writes random punctuation where there shouldn't be. Maybe it's just my handwriting's ugly. I don't know. However, I recognize my numbers really well though. You can double tap the side of the pen for stuff like eraser, but honestly, I don't really like it. Sometimes I'll just double tap, and it takes a second or two for the pen to realize, oh hey, you tapped twice. So you'll double tap again, thinking it didn't register, but at this point, it's been tapped 4 times, so it just goes back to the thing you had before. I've gotten used to it since, but it works around 85% of the time, which isn't great. Very few times though, maybe like once or twice a week, the pencil will fall asleep and miss a stroke, which is really weird, but it just wakes up after a second. The back camera is 12 megapixel with 29mm f1.8 lens that can record up to 4K at 60 frames per second. The selfie camera is also 12 megapixel, 14mm f2.4, and can record video at 1080p 60 fps. Don't use your iPad to take pictures. First, you look ridiculous. But when you actually take the picture though, the results are fine. It's not world-changing quality, but in good lighting, the iPad does great, and in low light, it's not too bad either. It's fast enough to take pictures of notebooks or projector slides at a distance, and the selfie camera is plenty good for video calling. This is what the front camera sounds like about an arm's length away. And this is what the back camera sounds like about an arm's length away. Speaking of sound, the speakers are good. Technically, they're stereo, but they're a little close together to distinguish. They get plenty loud and sound even better when the iPad can resonate off a surface like a table. It's clear for watching videos and movies and plays music just fine. Sometimes the outlets at my school are weirdly shaped and I just can't fit my charger in there for some reason, so battery life is also important. Thankfully, I can say that the battery is pretty good. It lasts more than 1 day of use easily in class, and sometimes when I forget to charge it overnight, it's no problem for the next day. Even with me using the screen at its brightest setting all the time, it lasts from 5 to 7 hours, and I'm sure you can go even longer if you just turn down the screen brightness just a little bit and turn on the battery saver mode. Standby time is also really good. I didn't charge my iPad for 3 days this week, and I was still able to take notes for 2 hours before it died. So is it worth it? Honestly, if you're a pilot, just go and buy it right now. Install ForFlight on it, and it's totally worth the $4.99 plus tax that you pay for it, as well as ForFlight. My dad and I both use this when we fly, and it's honestly the best size to put on your lap, and the processor is plenty fast for handling maps. Even if you're not a pilot, the iPad mini 6 is still a great tablet, and it's hard to find things wrong with it. But in my eyes, it feels a very niche market. It's really easy to recommend for pilots, but it's kind of harder to recommend to anyone else. If you're just going to watch movies or read off of the iPad, just save $200 or $300 by getting the basic iPad. The display is just slightly less good and the processor is not as new, but you won't really notice the difference. For me though, the iPad mini just can't replace my laptop. It's plenty fast, it can totally be a computer, and sure, you can buy those keyboard cases that are $50 or $60, but those keyboards are usually not as fast as a proper laptop keyboard. And even when I actually need to analyze data, video edit, or play a game, my laptop just goes right back into my backpack. I basically use mine as a glorified notebook and pen, but being able to do university and school, not using a single sheet of paper, is really convenient. In conclusion, the iPad mini 6 is an excellent small tablet. It's really hard to find anything wrong with it, though I do warn you it's not necessarily something you need. It is a little expensive, but you definitely get what you pay for, so if you're looking for a small tablet, the iPad mini 6 is not bad of a choice.